As you see here, we're back from a movie review. X-Men Days of Future Past. Directed by Bryan Singer, who 14 years ago brought us the X-Men. Wow, it's been a while. And now he brings us an in-between sequel of X-Men First Class and X3 The Last Stand. This time around there's a huge cast, and I'll just break it down to the major characters. So we got returning Hugh Jackman, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, Michael Hoult, and a newcomer, Peter Dinklage. So what's this movie about? So basically it's about, in the future, things are bad for mutants because there's these things called Sentinels, and there's just big robots that can destroy all mutant kind. So they figured out that they can send Wolverine's consciousness back into 1973's Wolverines and have him convince Magneto and Prof X to work together to stop Mystique, who is trying to assassinate someone, which will spark the start of the Sentinel Program. So that's basically the plot. So what did I like about this film? First off, the entire film was done well in the sense where the pacing, the acting, the atmospheric vibe, and just the general storyline was just done well. Sure, I can say the action sequences could have been better, but the character development and the pacing and the atmosphere was just done well. In the sense where if you watch X-Men First Class, which you really should, because if you haven't, it sort of loses its cause. James McAvoy portrayed a real humanistic version of Professor X. I always felt that with Patrick Stewart, he was beyond us, as in he had an intellect thinking that was just way much vaster than a normal human being. But with James McAvoy in First Class, he felt more realistic in the terms of he was discovering his powers and discovering what he could do with them, and he was just like sort of branching out and just starting to become powerful. And this time around, James McAvoy has to portray a Professor X who is just down on his luck, really conflicted with himself, and has tons of inner conflict and turmoil between being a normal person and his mutant abilities. And this awesome character development from James McAvoy here for Professor X. Also, Michael Fassbender returns, and just he again is still with his ideal of how mutant uprising. But it was just awesome to see the two of them being in the same scene together, and just seeing them having dialogue was just awesome. So again, this movie cements the fact that these two guys were cast greatly for these roles. Also, we got a returning of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I hear people are saying that Hugh Jackman or Wolverine is just a single vehicle that we have for all X-Men franchise for the entire X-Men franchise. But I would say here for Days of Future Past, he starts out as that, but he becomes a supporting member, and he steps aside and lets the new guy sort of take over. And it's just nice to see that Wolverine can have this role in a movie, that there's other people involved and it's not just mainly about Wolverine. Because I think I myself too had a problem where all the movies revolved around Wolverine, and this time it wasn't like that. Also, we got a returning of Jennifer Lawrence and Peter Hoult. Peter Hoult has much more scenes this time around, I would say, and he's much more blue. Though his acting ability, I would say he was just what he brought to First Class, and it was just what else was needed. And I think he did well with what he had. Also, we got Jennifer Lawrence this time around for a big role for the storyline. I think she did well here, in a sense where she was spearheading the movement to just really try to put together the ideals of both saving humanity and saving mutants. So yeah, I think she was fine, and the action sequences that she was in was just, you know, normal Mystique sort of fight style. Also, we got Peter Dinklage, who portrays Boulevard Trask, and I would say he had just great atmosphere, great presence in this movie. From what I heard, Trask is not a dwarf in the movie, but it doesn't matter here, and I think that breaks grounds, as Dinklage really shows that it doesn't matter what you look like, but rather it depends on your ability to act. And I swear, like, every time he showed up was just awesome, and it was just like, I really liked the emotions that he put into a character that was all strictly about bettering ourselves and protecting the country sort of thing. That's hence the Sentinel Program. And yeah, so that's pretty much the basic, that's all the main characters. There's also these set pieces of Quicksilver, which was done amazingly well, and I think that was the best part for me in terms of action sequences in this movie. It was just really fun to watch. The action sequence that I saw for the future stuff was pretty cool, but when I saw it again, it felt very rehashed, so I sort of was kind of like, I liked it the first time I saw it. And yeah, the action sequence, beside that, wasn't as actiony as I thought it was, because I heard that it was compared to Avengers, so I thought that this movie would be all set pieces and not a lot of character development, but rather I got a lot of character development and not that many crazy set pieces. But again, Quicksilver trumps all, I would say. Also, throughout this film, there's a lot of Easter eggs and nods, and it's just really fun to watch. And overall, the dialogue here is just fun. I would say it's not as cheesy and one-liner-ish as Avengers, but it just works here. That it felt naturally humorous, and it was just fun to watch, like I just said. So what I not like about this film, I would say there's a loss of potential for the future timeline. Sure, you brought back well-known faces for this future timeline, but it just felt that the dialogue written for those scenes wasn't as fun, or just wasn't as great as the ones that were done in the 73 timeline. And I felt that sort of dragged a bit every time we went back to the future, and it was just, like I want to see 73, not future timeline. And that sort of sucks, because I think the future timeline was aesthetically pleasing, and the potential it had there was just great, though the dialogue really suffered every time we were there, and yeah. I mean, basically that's pretty much it. This was a fun movie. I mean, you have to make me compare it to the recent superhero films that we had. This is definitely better than Spider-Man. I would say it's not better than Captain America the Winter Soldier, but it's definitely better than Iron Man 3, better than Thor 2 as well. And I mean, you know, people are going to compare because they always compare. But at the same time, you have to remember that this movie came from Fox, so it's a different group of people working on it, unlike Marvel, who has a crazy, I don't know, this crazy overview blueprint of the Marvel Universe. So I think as a standalone sort of Fox franchise, it's done well. Like, it redeems itself in terms of just what came out before, like Origins, that was just horrible, Last Stand. Though it makes me wonder what would have happened if Last Stand was directed by Bryan Singer. I think he would have done amazingly, and he would have done it well, because one thing that I seriously hated about Last Stand was the huge cast. Like, it was done, like, every mutant, which was amazingly cool to see, new mutants with new powers, were just there for saying, hey, we can show so many people, so let's do it. But Singer did it well here, and in terms of just using everyone well. Like, it didn't feel like, oh, we're just doing it because we can. Whereas Last Stand did that. But here, as I said, the cast is huge, but I think he did it well and showcased it enough people that you would just be piqued of interest and not just feel like it was a throwaway thing. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this movie review for the Day of Future Past. Leave me a comment below if you've seen it and what do you think about it. And that's pretty much it. So, movie review of X-Men Days of Future Past. Out. Hold up. Reminder, there is an after credit scene. Just stay behind. I would say non-comic fans are going to be like, what the heck did I just see? And comic fans are going to be like, holy crap, this is happening. And yeah, that's all. Out.